At number is Game Party, which is described as one of the worst games of all time, with a Metacritic score of 25 out of 100. Now, in terms of games that sold less than Game Party, we have Monster Hunter Tri, Metroid Prime 3, WarioWare Smooth Moves, Kirby's Epic Yarn, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, Wario Land Shake It, and Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. They all did shit compared to Game Party. The Wii was really popular with people who say I wanna fucking die and we stand in the same sentence, and was probably one of the best selling consoles of all time, but I didn't look that up, so I don't know. While this was probably somewhat due to its retail price being lower than other consoles, or its more family-friendly aesthetic and software, it's fairly obvious the popularity came simply from the controller because there's a speaker in this. The Wii appealed to really weirdly obvious things like being able to have yourself in the game and being able to play just through movements. I feel like I'm being really mysterious about obvious things like, oh, did you know the Wii has motion controls? But I want to emphasise how exciting and understandable this is to random people. Pressing a button to simulate bowling could be strange and foreign to many, but simulating bowling just by doing the same movements breaks that barrier of entry, and so money just kind of falls from the sky. But you can't just kind of have that on a console and say, have fun Game Party devs. You need to set the standard and show how it can be used. This led to the creation of the Wii series of games, which everyone seemed to have apart from me, and me is spelt like this. From a haze of severe mental breakdowns, I came home with a copy of every one of these games. I managed to buy them because I'm actually allowed a debit card now. Do you want me to prove it? Do you want me to fucking prove it? I'll put my details on the screen right now. Anyway, I've got this huge stack of old Wii games, and I wanted to play games I couldn't own when I was younger since I got New Super Mario Bros. With my Wii. Isn't a good enough reason to screech at the person working at CEX when they don't have a copy of Wii Music. So we're gonna play all of them. There's a lot of them, at least 2. So I guess we'll start with Wii Sports, that makes sense. Wii Sports was a launch title for the Wii, along with Wii Play, but Wii Play was released slightly later in North America, and Wii Sports is the one that gets all the attention. It especially gets that attention because everything I said before about grasping how to play applies directly to Wii Sports. It's a series of simple representations of sports which were chosen specifically because of their recognisability to global audiences. You have tennis, baseball, bowling, golf and boxing, and we're going to go even further into this flowchart by reviewing each of these individually. I don't know how else you would review them. The first one is tennis, which is a good way to introduce the game at least. It's tennis, so you are just hitting a ball. It's the easiest to grasp, and initially it does feel cool because it does feel like you're kind of playing tennis. Like, you're making a lot of the same motions and everything, but as you keep playing you realise that it's kind of limiting. You can't move, which is fair enough, it keeps it simple and understandable, but you also don't have much control over the racket. If you're playing in single player, both players will swing at once, so you can bait them into a rally and then quickly switch player once they fall asleep or something, but actually hitting the ball feels random. You get this little preview before the game starts where you can swing the bat, and in this preview if I swing the Wii remote left, the racket swings left and vice versa, but when I get into the match I swear this just disappears and the Miis do whatever they want. They've taken control again, left becomes right and right becomes left, so there's no order. Tennis is okay, even after seeing how shallow it is I still wanted to keep playing it a bit, but it is shallow and all it ends in is you swinging the Wii remote with good timing. The lack of different modes doesn't help either, it's just 2v2s on the same court every time, but as an introduction to motion controls it actually works really well. But after tennis you'd want something a bit more in depth, and so baseball is next on the list. And yes, baseball is on the list, I forgot as well. Baseball's the weird one, at least for me, because I don't know anything about it. Like, I don't know much about sport in general, but baseball especially because it's not really a thing here in the UK. I think cricket is our equivalent, but even then all I hear about that is my neighbour occasionally screaming at it. Whether out of celebration or just plain fear of the sport, I'm not sure. Anyway, baseball fucking sucks. I don't know if it's because I'm unfamiliar with the sport or what, but I just found baseball really boring. It's basically just hitting a ball and getting more or less points depending on how you hit it and if some random person got it. It's more accurate than tennis, but it still feels somewhat random. All you can do is hit the ball and hope that you don't go out. Again, this is probably because I have no initial interest in baseball. The rest of the sports here I understand the appeal, but baseball? Yeah, I don't get this. Actually, I take all of this back. Along with batting, you can pitch. You swing the remote. Can I take back that I took something back? Next though is bowling, which fucking sucks. Bowling's the one that people know Wii Sports for. It's the highest regarded sport in the game. I can't play it. I don't know what's going wrong, if it's my Wii remote or what, but no matter what I do, the ball always rolls slightly to the right. Even if I explicitly swing to the left, it goes to the right. I don't know what's going on here, so I'll wait a little bit to talk about bowling because... Anyway, on to golf, I guess. It's golf. This one's actually pretty good. It's just golf, but it works as golf, so golf isn't really my thing, and if it's not Neo Turf Masters, I'm not having it, but it's a really good representation of the sport. I don't really have any problems with it, but at the same time, I'm not sure what to say. It's just golf. You choose your club and stuff, and then hit the ball. It's simple, it's pretty good. Boxing's also pretty good, but in a different way. It's not like boxing at all, but it's just kind of cute. It's like a toy. I remember this was the one kids would play, and that kind of makes sense. It's not even close to a simulation, but it's so flashy and fun. A lot of the appeal comes from the presentation, I feel. The sounds that come from the Wii remote, the way the models all bounce about and get straight up after being knocked down, and of course the fact that you are punching. It's just kind of nice. Nowadays it is a bit simple, especially after playing things like that Creed game, but I think it appeals to kids better than the others do and helps to even out the collection. And that's all the games in Wii Sports. It's alright. I don't think there's too much reason to play this now. It can't help but feel like a tech demo, but it's a fun tech demo. It's not the insane, impressive showing of motion controls it once was, but it does work fine as a casual sports-themed party game. I don't think you need to actively look for a copy, but if you find it, you may as well play it, especially considering how cheap it is. I'm just kidding. My copy cost £8, which is just a bit too much for this. Everyone had it, it's just no one sold it. Everyone seemed to throw it out or something. Yeah, for the not high but still surprisingly high price Wii Sports goes for now, I don't really think it's worth it unless you really want it for whatever reason. Like, I got the first 3 Devil May Cry games in the same shop for the same price, and I know why that is. It's cause people traded these games in but not Wii Sports, but still. So anyway, everyone that bought a Wii and therefore Wii Sports said this is great, but you know, the dog ate the Wii remote, so they need the second one, and that one just happened to come with Wii Play, which was unwanted and unloved, but at least it had Wii tanks. This is unrelated, but it's like, it's raining really heavily outside, but the sky's still all blue and stuff, and it looks really nice. That is really, I'm sorry, what am I on about? This complete disinterest in Wii Play extends to the developers, by the way. This was developed alongside Wii Sports, but then they just kinda focused on Wii Sports and left Wii Play, causing them to cancel multiple of the minigames. This is what the Wikipedia article says, they just straight up didn't give a shit about Wii Play. I don't really blame them though. Wii Sports was to show off the fancy motion controls, but Wii Play was to show off the pointer. Which I think the home menu did just fine. Like, I'm pointing at stuff, that's kind of what it's for. Most of these games can be played with any other control method, which you see immediately in Shooting Range, where you shoot stuff. You know Duck Hunt from 1984? It's that in 2006, which is kind of both its best and worst aspect. It works fine as a quick satisfying shooter, and as an understandable explanation of the pointer, if that really needed explaining, but at the same time, it's Duck Hunt. Like, you've played this many times before, and probably in better forms. It's kind of wild to me that they both realised the Wii is perfect for rail shooters, and also remade one of the most basic rail shooters. Like, come on, you could put Presidential Paintball on here at least. But yeah, this is alright, I guess. It's like eating bread and nothing else. Like, I'm not having a good time, but it's probably at least a time. Is it even a time though? Find Me is the longest and probably least interesting game of Where Volley I've ever played. It shows you really weirdly dull environments and then tells you to complete an objective like find the 2 matching Miis. It's okay, but it's a bit boring, and I think the presentation is partly to blame for that. You look at a Where's Wally book and it's these huge colourful pictures of interesting locations that are really busy but not in a bad way, and then you look at Find Me and it's just Falkirk or maybe occasionally space. Nothing's happening usually. Sometimes there'll be people running, but generally you could play this with a few packs of cards. The difficulty curve doesn't help either. It's not even a curve, it's random spikes. This game's generally an easy slog, but then I get to one really difficult stage, almost lose my time, and then it gets really easy again. My feelings towards it are really similar to Shooting Range. It's okay, it's just so nothingy. These feel like minigames they would add to the loading screen of the Wii Shop channel, not the main part of a full game. This isn't helped by table tennis, which is Pong. Pong was released on a disc in 2006. Remaking Duck Hunt from 1984 is a bit weird, but 1972 is just pushing it a bit. Pose Me's a bit better. I mean, it's still just fine, but there's a bit more to it, and it's the first game you can't just play with a mouse. The pointer is represented by your Mii, and you have to fit them into shapes by moving them, rotating them, and changing their poses. It's alright, but not like, oh, it's alright, it's actually alright. It's a simple concept, but I've not seen it done to death. It's quick, snappy, and satisfying, and actually gets kind of difficult without the difficulty just leading to, fuck it, well that's the game over, I guess. Also, the graphics are wild, like what is going on here? It looks like they just took random assets from Windows 7. Laser hockey is Pong again. Okay, it's more air hockey than Pong, but if this is what these Wii games are, then I don't think I'm gonna keep buying them. Ah shit. Despite it being so basic, I kind of prefer table tennis to laser hockey, because laser hockey just doesn't feel good. It's far too fast to work within the limitations of the Wii's pointer. You always have to think about going off the screen when you really shouldn't have to. Also, since you're not pushing the paddle and you're instead just pointing to where it goes, it feels weird adjusting strength. The saddest part is that none of this would be a problem if you could just use a mouse. You use a mouse the same way you play air hockey, so I mean all this does is show the limitations of the pointer. It's not the worst thing I've ever played, it's just with the Wii remote, laser hockey feels really weightless and glitchy. It's the first minigame I can say is just bad. Unlike billiards, which is the first one I can say is just good. It's pool. I feel the same way to this as I do to golf. It's a pretty good representation of the sport which doesn't exclusively use the motion controls. You use the D-pad to adjust your aim, and then the motion controls are used to adjust strength. It's even a little more advanced than Wii Golf, as it lets you easily put a spin on the ball, and unlike golf, pool is actually fun in real life. Yeah, I like this one a lot. The motion controls with hitting the ball can feel a little sticky at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's good. Fishing is another kind of empty one, but it's a bit better than the other empty ones because, brain juice. This one's really basic, but it's got a nice visual style and satisfying sounds and effects. You just fish, but I mean, it's okay. Charge uses the pointer by... Wait, don't cover it, no. Yeah, charge is weird because it's just about tilting the Wii remote. You ride a cow, tilting the Wii remote forward makes it go faster, and you tilt the Wii remote to turn. You have to run over these scarecrows. It's kind of like Wii boxing in that it's just quick punchy fun, and kids liked it. I know that because I was like 5 when these games came out, by the way. Don't, like, stop. It's alright. It's a bit out of place, but satisfying enough, I guess. The last game on this is Tanks, which is worryingly good. You play as these amazing little tanks on this toy battlefield, and you need to destroy the other tanks. It's kind of arcadey, but it also feels like every move matters. You can't just fire at random, every move has its downsides. While moving you can't fire, and while firing you can't move. Bullets can also bounce off the wall once, which means they can ricochet into enemies, but it also means they can come back and hit you if you're not careful. And those bullets are fairly slow, so you have to time your shots really well. It's not always best to just point and shoot, in that way it feels similar to shooting rockets in like Quake or Team Fortress. You also get these mines, which enemies can run over, but can also hurt you if you're like me and can't remember... What? It's got the kind of loop I mention in all my free videos, where each of the mechanics work together to create the artistic masterpiece that is Tanks on Wii Play. The rest of the games though, billiards and Tanks are genuinely good, but air hockey is pretty bad and the rest are just kind of set in B. Some are better and worse than others, but most of them just feel lifeless. It also isn't really impressive in terms of showing off the Wii remote. It's kind of limited in what it can show with the pointer, and what it does can sometimes show how glitchy the pointer can be. It's also not very impressive because unlike Wii Sports, what you're doing is kind of vague, I guess. Like with Wii Sports, it's like, wow, it really feels like I'm playing tennis. And with Wii Play, it's just, wow, it feels like I'm really finding myself. But with both these games coming out, there wasn't really anything else you could show off with the remote, aside from 2009's Calling, which shows that, yes, this controller has a speaker. Nintendo, however, seemed done with these tech demo kind of games, so in what must have been an awful meeting, someone said, people buy scales, right? Just put that on the Wii. And the world hasn't been the same since. The Wii Fit balance board is just a really advanced scale. It apparently has more load cells in order to track your balance better rather than just your weight, but it is just a scale, and with it Wii Fit was released, the only game anyone used this for. There is also the Avatar game, which probably isn't very good but uses every Wii accessory imaginable, and I have no idea why, but they did it. They must have been really bored while developing it. So yeah, Wii Fit, I guess. It fits the other games by having a fairly casual target demographic, so it shouldn't be too stressful. I do need to use my legs though. I don't know if these even like... This game has a fairly lengthy startup process for something you're never going to play again. This weird flesh creature marches up to you. It doesn't have any bones, but it can move, so I guess it's supposed to be a slug. The slug asks me to do a bunch of things, including change time itself, which initially scared me a bit, not only because it's a daunting task, but also because I'm using a Wii U and I don't know how it works on that. It then gives me a tutorial on how to stand and tells me to put in my height and age, to which I realise I don't actually know my height. You can put the age counter up to 100 and your Mii just stands there thinking about its own mortality. This was all before I even got the altar out, where the standing tutorial really came in handy. It didn't do the funny meme where it tells me I'm obese, but that doesn't mean it didn't make me feel like shit. Even the yoga instructor told me to stop breathing. But after all that, yeah, this is a pretty fun way of working out. There's yoga, muscle workouts, and aerobic and balance games, and they're a pretty varied way of working out. You get the balance games and stuff, but a good chunk of this game is just actual workouts. It's a pretty fun and convenient way of working out if you just want to do daily workouts to keep yourself healthy. That is what it seemed to set out to be from development, so I'd say it succeeds. I just think it's odd that it has all this serious stuff about losing weight and perfectly tracking your progress. I could be completely wrong on this, but I don't think yoga and muscle exercises are a good way of losing weight, and those are kind of the main focus here. That's on top of the apparently glitchy system of it calling people obese, so yeah, this is a fairly fun way of working out, but I don't think it's the most efficient way to make a difference in your health. Not that you care, we're going to use Wii Fit to exercise in 2019. Despite it being announced really early into the Wii's life, Wii Music only released after Wii Fit on October 16th, 2008. I feel a bit sorry for it, honestly. It just kinda sat for years while Wii Sports and Wii Play went off and where. And then when it was finally about to be released. This game's weird. It's not really a game, it's more like a creation tool. Basically, you get to play a ton of instruments, like a ton, using the Wii Remote and possibly Nunchuck. It also makes you hold the Wii Remote as if you're actually playing the instrument, to which I really wish people knocked when coming into my room. You don't really play these instruments like you play the instruments in real life. You can try, but it won't work. I think that's best shown by this fancy drum mode they have that uses the balance board. Let's say you're doing a basic drum thing where you hit the hi-hat on every beat, and either a bass or snare on every second beat. Your left hand will be hovering next to the snare drum, and your right hand will be hovering over the hi-hat while crossing over your left hand. The problem with this is that because your right hand is crossing over your left, it might hit your left hand, which is fine if you're playing real drums, but on Wii Play that counts as you shaking the remote, which counts as you hitting the drum when you didn't want to. You can avoid this by holding the Wii Remote like this because everything is determined by button presses, but at that point it's nothing like playing the drums and the game tells you to act like you're actually using the instrument. Same with all the instruments apart from like the flute, you're not doing any of the actual actions, you're just shaking a remote. And that's what the gameplay is made up of, shaking a remote. It hits the correct notes for you, you just have to hit them in time. Or don't, just stop giving a shit, you'd be surprised how many musicians take this approach. The purpose rather is to play the game your way, which I think is the reason for the odd music selection. You're supposed to change the songs yourself, and so I guess they picked songs that everyone would know. My problem with that though is that it just doesn't allow you to be as creative as you may want to be. There's only so many ways you can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. This feels like if they made Mario Paint but didn't let you draw, and it was just colouring already existing pictures of Naughty. I know that's a random character, but you tell me why they put La Bamba on this. There is this improvise mode, but there seems to be the same backing track all the time, which you'll play along with, so this is just another song, basically. I feel like it would have been better if they just released a full but easy to use music creator, like what Mario Maker is to level design, Wii Music could be to making music. I get what Wii Music is doing, but what it's doing is kinda shit, so I mean, why do I feel genuinely sorry for this game? It's not real. Or, it's not real, I mean like, according to the Wikipedia article for the Wii Remote, it just has an accelerometer by default. So when people started shrieking, Nintendo said, "We're sorry, we'll add a gyroscope," and everyone said, "Good, I will now give you $50 for this apology and Wii Sports so that I can actually use the gyroscope," making Wii Sports Resort the second best-selling game of that year. I hope you've learnt your lesson. Wii Sports Resort is Wii Sports, but better. It's essentially to the Motion Plus what Wii Sports was to the Wii Remote. It's a series of mini games that show how cool it is that you're playing table tennis. A Wii Sports sequel was always planned for some reason, and the Motion Plus was just an excuse to actually do it, I guess. Speaking of the Motion Plus, you really can't forget you're using it. Watch this. There's a 3-minute tutorial on that. Once you're past that, it's Wii Sports. It even has 4 sports similar or just straight the same as sports from Wii Sports. Table tennis is like tennis, sword fighting is like boxing, and golf and bowling are just here. No baseball though, because honestly, who really cares? We'll go over these first. Bowling is bowling and golf is golf. Alright, that'll do. These are just more accurate versions of the sports. I think bowling is a big improvement because I can actually get this version to work properly, in which case I find that, yep, this is bowling. I think it misses the fun of bowling where you don't play for 10 minutes and then when you do finally get your turn you miss every single pin, but it's alright. Golf is also a bit more accurate as you can curve the ball depending on the way you swing the club, so these are just the same games but they are better than their Wii Sports counterparts. Table tennis is tennis again, but it's slightly different. For one, the motion detection is much more accurate, but also you are the table. Since table tennis is on a much smaller scale, you don't need to worry about whether Mies will reach the ball. It's all smooth and automatic, all you have to care about is how you hit the ball, which is pretty much all that tennis needed to be. Sword fighting isn't as clearly boxing, but I put it here just because while you're doing different things, the idea of the game is fairly similar. Most of it involves you blocking, waiting for them to attack, and then striking back. I didn't actually mention any of the blocking or anything in Wii Sports because I don't think it worked all that well. It was okay, but it didn't do the whole countering system sword fighting has. Sword fighting is similar to boxing however, and it's a fairly simple game made fun because of horrible violence. It even has this on-rail shooter type thing where instead of shooting people you're swiping at them, which is simple and silly but pretty fun since it implements your own movements. It's actually surprisingly similar to Beat Saber. Alright, on to new stuff, starting with wakeboarding, which is okay, but you can tell by that tone that it's actually not okay. It's very repetitive. What you do is you jump and then land, over and over. There doesn't seem to be many tricks or anything you can do, it's just spinning in a half pipe, which can be pretty boring, like you've seen everything by now. Canoeing's the same, it's very simple, but I like this one more because it's so much closer to being an arcadey version of the actual sport. You just paddle, but that's what canoeing is, so I mean it's alright. Power cruising is the same, but not. The problem with power cruising is that it's just driving a vehicle that is similar to driving a motorcycle, so they made a really simple racing game, realised this, and then added the boost mechanic. The boost mechanic's okay, but it doesn't add much. This is still a really simple racing game. The other games are simple, but that's okay because the other games let you do things you can't in other games. For example, I don't think there's many representations of bowling which are this accurate. But power cruising, there's so many games that play so similar. There's more interesting games with the same control style. There's more interesting games in fact with more interesting control styles. It's not bad, it's just a bad choice for this game. Next is Frisbee, which, are you fucking serious? What is with these sports? Again, Frisbee works fine, but like, what? I can go out and buy a Frisbee for like £1, why would I spend £50 to pretend I own one? Canoeing, I get it. I can't go out canoeing easily, or at least I can try, but last time, the boat kind of, I guess, melted, you'd call it, I'm not really sure. Boxing, I get it, it's a pretty dangerous sport, maybe I just want to play it without making an even bigger indent in my brain. But Frisbee, I own a Frisbee, it's called Wii Play. Again, this is fine, I guess, it does feel like I'm throwing a Frisbee, but like... Cycling's okay, but I didn't really like it. As in, it works fine, there's a variety of content here and it's reasonably fun I guess, I just don't like the way it controls. Your hands both function as the pedals and handles, and you're holding both the nunchuck and Wii remote. I just feel like there's too much going on here. I don't feel like I can reliably turn since I'm using both controllers, and it just doesn't click with me. It is fine though, I just don't get it. And another thing is that it plays just like a normal racing game with stamina that will run out if you accelerate too much and weird controls. So the control is really all it has. I feel like people either like this one because it's kind of like your cycling, or not like it because it's not like your cycling. Archery, however, is one I genuinely like. It's just archery, but that doesn't mean it's simple. You have to consider how the arrow will be affected by wind and gravity, giving it a decent amount of challenge, but it also feels really nice with your slightest moves being tracked perfectly, and also the cord between the controllers oddly adds something to it. The maximum strength for firing is just as far as you can pull these remotes away from each other, and you know you can't go any further because of this cord. It acts kind of like an actual bowstring. Basketball is okay as well, it's not great but it feels good. You're mostly just throwing the ball into a hoop. It doesn't feel like you're trying to throw the ball into the hoop on screen though, more like one in real life if that makes sense. Like I found it actually kind of helpful to visualise the hoop slightly above me and throw the ball in there. That sounds really stupid but it genuinely works, I swear. The best new sport though has to be Pilot Wings on the Super Nintendo. The air sports are a collection of air sports that... Did I mean that as a joke, or am I just genuinely stupid? One of which is okay, but kinda feels like you get it after you've played it once. One of them I can't play because I have One Motion Plus, but just seems to be shooting each other. And one of them is the Island Flyover. The Island Flyover is this adorable flying thing where all you do is collect tokens and shoot balloons as you unlock more things. You can even see where all the sports take place. It's really basic and there isn't much to say, but part of what makes it so fun is the fact the controller is like the plane and you tilt it to turn and pitch, and it's just such a nice addition, but it actually adds to the game by making everything more accurate. I don't really like how boosting works. You have to punch forward and it just doesn't feel right, but that's all I can really complain about. It is really basic though. I wish they'd make a full game out of this. Well, they did. I'm not buying that. But yeah, that's everything on Wii Sports Resort. It's pretty good. It's not perfect. There's a lot of sports on here where it feels like they did everything they wanted to do with Wii Sports, and then we're like, oh shit, fuck, Frisbee? But even still, there's enough good new stuff for it to not feel like a mess, and on top of that, the old stuff's been improved because of the Wii Motion Plus. So between this and Wii Sports, if you had to pick one for some reason, yeah, this one obviously. Speaking of the Wii Motion Plus actually, with this Nintendo could do way more with motion controls, so they waited a year and then released Wii Play Motion. If you don't know what Wii Play Motion is, that's fine. I didn't either until I'd finished writing this video. Much like Wii Play, it was developed to create small games that show off the Motion Plus. But again, the Motion Plus came out a year before this, with Wii Sports Resort, which was small games that showed off the Motion Plus. Wii Play at least focused on the pointer more, but the Motion Plus is just for motion. There's nothing more to show past Wii Sports Resort. Like Wii Play, it was bundled with controllers that had Wii Motion Plus built in. You know what else was bundled with the Wii Motion Plus? That you could have bundled with the Wii Motion Plus controllers? This game's existence is bizarre, but it's fine. It's got 12 minigames, with some being remakes of old minigames and most being new. But I don't know if I should really go through them all because my notes for most of them are just, it's alright. There's two that aren't very good. One just has you skimming stones, but it takes a while to get used to the controls, and then when you do, it's skimming stones. And one is just Shooting Gallery from Wii Play, but with weird 3D controls that use the Motion Plus, despite them actively making it worse. So you know how with Shooting Gallery or whatever, you're just pointing on the screen to show where you want to shoot, and then in a VR game you're pointing to what you shoot as if it's like in front of you? This is in between. You point to where the object would be in real life to shoot it, which is fine in VR, because it feels like the thing is actually there, but here you're still looking at the screen while pointing elsewhere. So you're not pointing at anything really, it's just like you're controlling a slow, inaccurate cursor on the screen. The rest are completely fine with nothing interesting to them. I got really excited when one has you spinning the controller like you're winding a rope round it. You can find my reviews on the Wikipedia article for this game where it says how the game plays and nothing else. I never really wanted to replay any of these, they all feel like mediocre phone games from 2010. Wii Play at least had two genuinely good minigames in tanks and billiards, but this is just completely empty and there's no real reason to play it. Kinda like Wii Party. Yeah, the last game in the Wii series is Wii Party, which is kinda shit. Would you not be pissed if your funeral just turned out as a knockoff of Mario Party? That's not even really an insult to the game, they made it as a Mario Party knockoff just with Miis. That's a fine idea though, no one else noticed that the Wii had Miis on it. If only there was a game where you could play as them, or better yet, a casual party game where you could play as them. It's fine, I guess, it's just a really generic party game though. Like a straight 5 out of 10, it's okay. It's got a fast pace at least, there's not much downtime between minigames, but those minigames range from alright to pick a side and you might win. That's an actual minigame by the way, you pick a side and if you pick the side that happens to be right, you get to do it again until everyone else has picked the wrong side. There's no way to tell what's the right side, it's literally just luck. It's not as luck based as Lucky Launch though, my favourite, which describes itself with the only thing you need to win this minigame is luck. And they're right, you pick one of 4 fireworks, and the firework you pick either means you win, or you lose. There's different game types, one of which takes cues from Sonic Shuffle and the game's most genius moments, but that's all there is to really say. There's not much to complain about, but there's also not much to praise. It's a totally fine game with nothing to make it stand out. I feel like if this came out earlier in the Wii's life I would see it differently, but coming out in 2010 and still using minigames that are just faster paced golf from Wii Sports makes it difficult to really like, but it's also difficult to dislike, so I don't know. This also doesn't even use the Motion Plus, so it really sticks out against the other Wii games as it isn't even trying to show anything off, it's just a party game. And that's my problem with these last two games, I can't help but feel like they were cash grabs, not much better than the bargain bin stuff the Wii has been criticised for. But the games that came before were unique and experimental but still accessible, and are remembered because of that. I still hear people talking about Wii Music because it's Wii Music, it does its own thing. Wii Party though, it's a party game. Anyway, this went on way too long, and I'm kinda sick of the games I was talking about, but since you listened to the whole thing, I'll show you something. I know about this Wii related project that... Don't tell anyone, but you're not gonna believe this.
I don't think I'll ever live to see a prophet. I don't want to be a locket, clinging to a chest till the last breath.